Welcome back to The Wrap, everyone. It's just Mark Ennis this week. Andy Sweeney taped one episode in 2023 and decided he didn't like us.
One and done.
Unbelievable. You might not be liking Louisville men's basketball right now if you are a Cardinal fan, and, well, we can't really blame you. They're 2-16 overall, 0-7 in the ACC on a 7-game losing streak. And, Mark, I think it's some of the games leading up to North Carolina, fans were finding some hope in some fight and some effort. But then against UNC, it's an 80-59 loss. And, honestly, it's the same problems popping up over and over again with this team.
It really looks like there's 8 or 10 things that any team can do to lose a game, and you can kind of count on Louisville to do 3 or 4 of them in every game.
Right.
And so it's not the same, from game to game, but it's not that any of them ever just become part of the past. Like, they don't improve past any of them. And in this one I think was especially disappointing because there's no reason to just not naturally be up for Carolina. And it was one of the best crowds in the Yum Center in a really long time. You had a North Carolina team, I think, that was vulnerable, not playing particularly well. And the first segment of the game, a lot like Clemson, Louisville looked prepared and off to a good start. And then it's just off a cliff. And all of a sudden you sort of blink and you look and they're down 8 when they were up 8. It's been one of the kinds of games they've played this year.
It seems like whenever there's like a small leak in the dam for them during a game, there's always one run that you can go back to spring the whole thing open. It's usually like a string of turnovers. It feels redundant. What are we going to...
It does have a dead horse feel to it.
What are we going to belabor here? That Ellis plays too many minutes and there's not another guard. Brandon Huntley-Hatfield didn't play against North Carolina, but none of the bigs really showed you anything spectacular, and I think that's something that you were hitting on. Mike James and Ellis have improved, and they've shown it, but as a unit, it's hard to find overall improvement with this particular team.
Yeah, I think it's fair for people who are looking for something that gives them encouragement about Kenny Payne to look at Mike James. And I think Ellis is playing better. And I did think their scout was good. What they tried to do, there was more space than they've had really all year. And they got to the rim a number of times against Carolina, but it was so hectic, really poor finishing at the rim. I think had they been a little bit more under control, maybe they get off to a little bit more confident start. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, if there's one overarching issue with this team, the mental toughness part, it does seem like they've got it in them until literally the first challenges.
And UNC ended the first half on a run, and it didn't feel like at any point in the second half, even when Louisville got it to single digits, that they were really back in the game. And this all leads me to an interesting part of this discussion. Josh Hurd spoke publicly really for the first time about the job Kenny Payne has done in this first season. It obviously hasn't gone very well. What did you take away from Josh's comments that he made supporting Kenny?
It won't make for great content, but nothing. That's what I think.
End the show.
Yeah, I can still. I told this story on the radio. I can remember Tom Jurich, the opening game of Steve Cragthorpe's last year, doing a halftime interview saying, "I believe in the staff. I believe in these coaches." And at the end of the year, they went whatever it was, and they fired him. I think this is what ADs have a duty to say publicly. If anything else, as an AD, you want to have a reputation among coaches and potential coaches of somebody who will stand behind your person until the very end. If anything, Josh was advertising for the next coach that you're going to get support from me if they do happen to make a change, which I find completely unlikely.
He brought up some of the points that a lot of people have brought up that have held Louisville back, whether it's the cloud, that proverbial cloud from the NCAA investigation, or the talent maybe just not being at the level that Louisville fans really see. And I think some of those excuses have merit, but I don't think they add up to being this bad. There's a difference between a rebuilding season and something to try and figure out the pieces and how they fit together. And then there's what we're seeing right now, and I think you're starting to see Kenny's frustration more and more in post games in terms of calling guys out saying, I just had guys out there who weren't competing, and that's a pretty big problem 18 games into the season.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point to bring those kinds of comments up. They are increasing, and I think the second possession of the game, I think Louisville was a little sloppy with the ball, and Kenny Payne just sort of threw his hands up, second possession of the game.
Yeah.
I think he is extremely frustrated, but I think he's bearing a lot of the fruit of some real mistakes early on that there's really no way to fast forward through now. You just sort of got aware. I think he just sort of messed up at the beginning. I think he overestimated what would work with these guys and what they would bring to the table. I think his tone changing is is noteworthy, and I think he needs more of it.
Well, as Louisville fans search for any sign of life for the rest of the season, Kentucky fans finally got one with a huge win at a top 5 opponent in Tennessee. The first win for an unranked Kentucky team on the road against a top 5 team in program history. That's kind of amazing to say for a program like UK, but they really brought the physicality in that fight, in that toughness that Oscar Tshiebwe kind of got criticized for saying his team lacked in the loss to South Carolina, but there's no way around it. This is the biggest win for UK of the season by far.
Oh, there's no question, and utterly surprising both in the fact that they did it and in the way that they did it. And to me, it felt very much like Louisville football after Boston College, where people are like, they're not going to win another game. I'm not going to. I can't look at this. And then the very next game, Louisville is off the mat, and coaches are still fighting. But I thought the physicality of it was surprising to me because that was the reputation Tennessee brought. In fact, I think it was Rob Dawson that tweeted somewhere last week, like, it looks like it hurts to play Tennessee.
Yeah.
And it did. For Tennessee, it hurt to play Kentucky. I thought they looked intimidated and they looked bullied a little bit. They looked like a team looks when they rush to avoid some physical contact they weren't used to. Kentucky was not the least bit afraid for that game. It was an impressive get up off the mat that I don't think anyone should have been able to see coming.
And when Calipari's talking about those of you shooting arrows and bullets at me, I got bazooka holes when he makes comments like that. You can tell he's feeling himself a little bit, and he should because they won this game without Severe Wheeler, who I know has detractors out there, but he's been the lead point guard for this team. You mentioned Casey Wallace and dealing with back spasms. He's got that belt on a lot. They also didn't have Damian Collins. That's what impressed me the most about this game for Kentucky was that when it was 8-0 early in Knoxville on the road, rabid crowd who knows Kentucky's struggling, that's where you feel like, man, this could get ugly. But instead, guys like C.J. Frederick steps up. He just got back from an injury. Antonio Reeves, too. There's no secret that if Kentucky's going to be the type of team people thought they were going to be this year, C.J. Frederick and Antonio Reeves have to produce like they did.
Yeah, maybe the best part about it is, like, even being shorthanded, it still really wasn't Oscar Tshiebwe that, like, led all of that.
Made key plays, but it wasn't just all him.
It wasn't like it was just people sort of drafting off of him. It was everybody, and it was different guys than they've really had to play. I think they played a roster that they'd only had 20 possessions together all season, and it worked out quite well for them. It's equally damning of Rick Barnes. Like, Rick Barnes, these games, I don't trust that guy to win a game like this.
It's tough, too.
And I saw the joke people made, like, he coached this like it was an NCAA tournament game. The joke, it's the element of truth that makes the joke work.
I was most intrigued to see how they would play without Wheeler and have to play Wallace leading the way. But you saw the lineup that UK fans have really wanted to see for most of the season. Cason Wallace, C.J. Frederick, Antonio Reeves, Jacob Toppin, Oscar Tshiebwe. And I think what that lineup does is it gives them a little bit more flexibility outside the perimeter with some shooting threats that they haven't had. Now, your shooting threats got to hit the shots, and that's what Reeves and Frederick did. But all in all, this felt like a game where Calipari and Kentucky got some swagger back, and that might have been the most important development they could have had at this point in the season.
They needed that desperately because, like, as it was happening, they squeaked by LSU, and LSU's losing by 40.
Oh, man.
And then they get beat by South Carolina, and South Carolina's losing by 40 that afternoon. Like, if they had lost this game to Tennessee with that happening, around them, it would have been hotter under the collar for him than I've ever seen at Kentucky. So this was timely, and he owes Louisville an assist or a thank you or something for fixing Jacob Toppin. Because, like, from the Louisville game forward, he's been a different guy, and it makes a big difference for them.
He really has, and he's got to be healthy too. And that's the biggest development for Kentucky moving forward. We'll see what the health updates are, but they have Georgia coming up on Tuesday night at Rupp Arena. We talk about Kentucky getting a big win. The Louisville women get a very big win against Florida State on the road in Tallahassee, and for that we bring in Chrissy Banta from ESPN Louisville. Here she is now, Chrissy Banta from ESPN Louisville. Chrissy, this was a huge week for Louisville women's basketball. It was a tough 2-point loss against a top 15 team on the road at Virginia Tech, but the Cards rebounded in the way that I think they really needed to get a quality win at Florida State. Morgan Jones was sensational in this game. 25 points, 10 rebounds, 9 of 10 shooting from the field. I think when everyone learned Louisville was getting Morgan Jones, this was the type of game, and even the one against Virginia Tech that they expected to see.
Yes, 100%. With Morgan Jones, we saw what she could do last year against Louisville. So there's a little bit of poetic justice taking her down to Florida State this year and seeing her have such a big game. This is the player they knew she could be all along. And I think as a fan base and from Coach Wall's perspective, seeing her break out of that shell and be that player the last couple of games has really been a significant improvement for her. And I think it's going to be huge in ACC play going forward.
I didn't think the light bulb had fully gone off yet for her. And I say that because you would see this potential in some stretches of games this year, but I don't think we had seen it sustained for an entire game. She brought it against Virginia Tech. And the thing that I really like that she's doing more than she did against Florida State, she's using her length and athleticism getting to the rim at will.
Yeah.
You could drive through contact, get free throws and ones. And the effort she made to get the offensive board towards the end of the game and get that in one, that's the best play she's made for Louisville all season.
That was a clutch play.
Yeah.
And seeing her come in and have such a physical game, this was a very chippy game. One of the most physical games we've seen them play all season long. To see her play just as physical and play so consistently for 4 quarters was huge, and it was imperative to this team getting that win.
I mentioned plays that win you games. It helps when your best player can hit an off-balance long 2 with a defender in their face as the shot clock winds down. Haley Van Lith did that, and she has a highlight reel of those since her time at Louisville. I know people harp on the turnovers, and she definitely had a lot of them against Florida State. She almost had a triple-double in this game. 8 rebounds, 8 assists, 20 points. She's finding different ways to impact the game because we know she can get 20 points every single game, but to fill up the other categories as well is very important for Louisville.
I agree. And Haley Van Lith is one of those players. We say Mikasa does Mikasa things. And, you know, a lot of the fans will say Haley's doing Haley things. She's a generational talent. And I think that people realize how important she is to the team right now, and I think after she's gone, they're going to see what an impact she truly did have. She is someone that can go out there and you can count on her every single night.
And I was talking about the points, rebounds, and assists, but you look at the steals too. I think she's gotten better as a defender.
She
Jeff
has.
Walls called her an All-American after the game, and I have to agree because the thing we always talk about with Louisville women's basketball is this competitive, gritty, tough mindset. That's Haley Van Lith to a T. She embodies that, and this team is going to follow that lead. So I think for her to bring it on both ends the way she did is huge. And Olivia Cochran played a great game, especially you saw that kind of like that reverse pivot mid-range jumper that Jeff Walls wants to see. She hit a huge one of those to make it a 7-point game. But they got contributions a little bit from everywhere. And I think if you're looking for a week in this season to tell you that this team can be what you thought it could be at the beginning of the season, this week, even with a loss, is the one you want to use for that.
I agree with that. And, you know, Dave and I have discussed it in the past. You mentioned it before we came on here. Narika Kono coming off the bench with significant minutes recently. She has really shown so much improvement in what she can really do as a defender. And even on the offensive end, the players that Louisville is bringing in off the bench are just as good as the 5 starters. And that plays a huge role in why the country is viewing this as such a high-level program year in and year out.
And that's something you touched on last week was the rotations and like kind of finding what works and what doesn't with this team. I think in these 2 games, you saw some glimpses of the players that Jeff is really trusting right now. When he puts Narika in for the 4th quarter minutes she got against Florida State, that's big. You saw Josie Williams take a step forward against Virginia Tech, which they had to get more from the bigs in that game to try and compete as much as they could with Elizabeth Kitley. It feels like that might be starting to come into the picture now, a fuller picture of like, who can I trust to go out there and make winning plays to get us these big wins?
Absolutely, and Nyla Harris is another one that he's learning to lean on more and trust a little bit more, which is great to see because she is just a freshman. But she really is starting to blossom more, and he's starting to trust her more with those minutes. She is an aggressive player, and I think you're going to see more of that come out in her moving forward as well.
Absolutely. I think her development is a huge storyline to watch as the season progresses, but it couldn't have been a bigger storyline than to beat this Florida State team on the road, especially after a tough loss to Virginia Tech. We'll see if Louisville can sustain it and kind of get on a bit of a roll as they go deeper into ACC play, but for now, that's Chrissy Banta. I'm Tyler Greever. Thanks for watching The Wrap.